on where things are at um, with the wellness centers and give you some more background about those wellness centers as well. Here we go. It's the screen I'm looking for. Let me share my screen. Full, full screen here. All right, can you all see that okay?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay, excellent. So back oh gosh, now it's almost been 2 years ago. There was a report that came out from Fortune magazine that talked about all of the closures with community pharmacies, and with those closures became a big deal that there were these pharmacy deserts around the country where people were unable to have easy access to a pharmacy, and those are all partners of mine. So my company, I'm the co-founder of ServeRx. We work with a lot of those independently owned community pharmacies. We have, over 20,000 pharmacies in our network. 17,000 of those are the independently owned. So we do work with some chains as well, but most of our clients are the independents. So if they close their doors and go out of business, ServeRx isn't going to have a business any longer. So I started looking at other services that could be brought to community pharmacies to help them, bring in new revenue. And so launched this new revenue roundtable that I started promoting, having pharmacies come in and learn about different products and services and different things that they could do to help offset the horrible reimbursements that they were getting now from PBMs. And the pharmacies that did okay during the pandemic were the ones that got involved and helped with the pandemic. So they started doing testing, COVID testing, and then when the vaccines became available, they started doing the vaccinations as well. And so those were the pharmacies that survived during that time, but the ones that didn't get involved with that really struggled and had a hard time. And so we're looking at the low-hanging fruit for community pharmacy, where these vaccines are not just COVID, but also your flu vaccines, your RSV, other vaccines that were available. Well, I looked at one of my clients that was doing quite a few vaccines. This is the actual example here in the lower right corner. They did almost 10,000 flu. So I just looked at just his flu vaccines. And they were getting on average about $17 per flu shot, which equated to 167,400. Okay. That was what the insurance has paid the pharmacy. That was the pharmacy rate. But if you would have gone to your medical provider, to a doctor, and gotten that exact same flu shot, same dose, everything, the doctor's office would have gotten reimbursed over $80 for that same flu shot. So you can see the discrepancy between the pharmacy's reimbursement and the doctor's office. So came up with this idea: what if the pharmacy had a wellness center, was credentialed on the payer side as a clinic? Would they be able to get those higher reimbursements to save their life? And sure enough, they can. And so that's where the wellness center concept came to life. And so we're now in the process of setting up these BRIM wellness centers. BRIM, live life to the brim. So live life to the fullest. And the focus is on wellness, not on sick care. So collaborative practice agreements with the doctors in the area around the pharmacy works really well. They're so backlogged in taking care of sick patients, they don't have time to do the well care side of healthcare. And so the BRIM clinic will take that on and help those physicians in their area. Case in point, Medicare patients, so 65 and older, should be getting an annual checkup. It's an annual well care check. Obviously, if you're doing that on a regular basis, you're identifying issues early on before it becomes a full-blown disease state. But PCPs don't have time to do those well care checks because there's a shortage of them, or primary care provider. Sorry, I use acronyms a lot. So primary care provider doesn't have time just to take care of the well care. We have an aging population, so more 65 and older than we've ever had before in our country. And so this is one service that BRIM is able to take on and help with, is doing all those well care checks. So imagine, most people know about minute clinics, but this is like a minute clinic on steroids. It's really providing additional resources, solution, technology, artificial intelligence, bioelectronics, all these high tech and new advancements that are not commonly available at an urgent care or or even a lot of the primary care providers. So we say it's similar to, a minute clinic, but on steroids. One of the other interesting things is there's a recent study done by Will that talks about virtual care. So telehealth. How many of you have had a telehealth visit before? A few of you have ever seen a doctor through your computer, or just even had a phone call with them? Yeah. So virtual care will surpass in-person visits for a couple of reasons. Not only the ease and convenience of it, but there are fewer primary care providers now in the marketplace as well, and less. Even the students coming out of medical school are specializing now. They're getting into specialty, or they're going in the surgery route, and they're not doing family practices anymore. So there's a shortage there. This is also a part of the Team Up initiative from last fall with NCPA. So NCPA is the National Community Pharmacist Association. There's over 200,000 members of this association, and NCPA is the big organization that kind of collectively brings all those community pharmacists together. So collectively, these independently owned pharmacies are the largest chain in the nation, twice as big as CVS, twice as big as Walgreens. They're the largest collective group. And so we are building out the largest healthcare collaboration in the US right now. This will help national employer groups with their wellness programs. And so instead of giving a patient an incentive to have a gym membership, but then never know if they're actually using the gym membership, employers will actually be able to track and monitor the wellness programs that their employees are on. So that's one of the other major benefits. I'm going to show you the kind of the four-legged approach to BRIM. For the pharmacy, it's an all-inclusive plug-and-play solution. There are so many valuable programs out there that our pharmacies could be utilizing, but they're short-staffed. They only have so many hours in the day. So every time you bring them a new program that could save their pharmacy and bring new revenue dollars to them, they're sitting there scratching their head figuring out, well, how am I going to staff for this? How am I going to take more time out of what I do to implement this program? I'll use that example again of the pharmacy that did the 10,000 flu shots last season. Well, that's multiple locations. They have 28 locations. The CEO of that company, a good friend of mine, here he is, the CEO, the chief executive officer, the big picture person that's supposed to be, overseeing the whole thing, that's still working behind the bench because he's short-staffed. So he's filling in shifts when he's got a staff pharmacist that's out sick. He's going in and pharmacy gets opened because we're unable to make it that day or whatever. So he's so busy involved in the business that he can't work on the business. And so to bring him a new program that's just going to require more time, effort, energy on his part, it's just not going to fly. And so what Brim does is they make it an all-inclusive. They do all the credentialing, even the staffing. That's the number one thing. I should probably move that bullet point to the top, because the staffing is their biggest issue right now. Brim staffs it for them, and I'm going to tell you about that concept in just a second because it's amazing. The patient management, so all the scheduling and managing of the patient, the practice management, so all of the systems. They even do the billing and collecting for the pharmacy. So everything is done for them. They're just providing the space, yet they still own it. So Brim just it manages it for them, and they own the clinic. So amazing program. Well, let's look at the second leg there. So the first number one that has those two circles is not only the wellness center itself, but all of the management services, talent exchange. You're when I can tell I was super skeptical of that. I was the very first person to say, I don't want some stranger coming to pick me up to take me to the airport. I mean, think of how weird that concept was. Did anyone else have that same feeling? Yeah. I mean, it was just weird that some stranger in their own call and take, oh, well, that oddity has far gone. It's completely, and I don't even think like looking at me price to go where I need to go. I just got back from a trip. First thing I did getting off the plane, got my bags, and then I looked, okay, if I use Lyft, it's that price. I just choose the best price and then when I stepped outside and waited for my Uber driver to show up. Well, this talent exchange is like Uber for health uh, professionals. So when Brim books up the schedule for the day, they then post that, and there's this appointment at this location. This is paid for that. And the healthcare provider goes in and says, oh, God, that's only, 25 minutes from my house. Yep, that's great. I'm free. And they click on it and accept the job for the day. So it's an amazing health exchange for talent that is being built to run all of these Brim centers. That way, if a Brim is just getting set up and the pharmacy doesn't have enough patients, they can share the same healthcare worker for the day with another location and not have the cost, the overhead of having a full-time, nurse practitioner or RN on staff. So an amazing opportunity. The other really cool thing, and this is number three, was my brainchild, and that is creating a pharmacy fund. So we just call it the financing and credit, but it's actually a pharmacy fund that the pharmacists can borrow from themselves to do the build out, because it's about a $36,000 to $40,000 worth of investment to get the Brim set up, depending on if they already have, a clinical room, or they have a lot of them have consult rooms. So they do their MTM, their medical management consults in these private rooms, but we have to bring in some plumbing. They have to have a sink and a few other things to be a clinical room. And so depending on what that build out is, it's somewhere between 35 and 40,000 for that build out. So if a pharmacy doesn't have that to invest, they can borrow it from the pharmacy fund. And as they're paying back the fund, they're building equity in the fund. So they're borrowing from themselves, paying themselves back. They're not required to do this, but it's just a really good idea that they're going to ear tag, X percentage of their revenue generated from the new clinical services to continue to go back into the fund. And now they're building more equity in the pharmacy fund, and that's now also helping to fund the next 2, 3, 4, 5 locations to get set up as well. So it's like a perpetual fund that just keeps growing the more people that are participating. And that way we can set up more and more clinics. So that's just a super high level overview of the program. One last thing I'll show you. I think most of you know that one of the technologies that we promote in the BRIM is the bioelectromagnetic energy regulator. If you're not familiar with that, I'll show you a quick demo here. So bioelectromagnetic energy is being used to increase circulation at the microcirculation, so the capillary levels. And that then also takes metabolic waste out faster, cleaning up your blood system and your cells. But it also increases your ATP, so cell energy, by about 22%. This is a leg muscle that's been blown up so that you can see one arterial here, bringing blood supply to the extremities. This little vessel coming off to the side here would be like a capillary that sometimes isn't even getting blood in it. Just sometimes it'll be lethargically letting a little bit in here and there. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the venule taking the blood back to the heart and lungs, right? So it's a little darker in color. It's not oxygenated, so it's going back to get oxygen and nutrients to bring back to the extremities. So those are the three vessels that I want you to focus on here. So this is before stimulation. Like I said, you're going to see sometimes blood just lethargically moving into that little capillary. After only 3 minutes of stimulation, it's flowing naturally. And after 6 minutes of stimulation, it's flooding into the extremities. I'm going to pause it right here just to point out now on the right-hand side, you're going to see these little white things. Those are not air bubbles. Those are actually white blood cells. So this is how magnified this is, that you can see individual white blood cells. Does not produce any more white blood cells, just makes them more active. So now they can do their job. They're supposed to be the little policeman going up and down your vessel walls to keep out bad things, the things that are going to make you sick. So it makes them more active. And see that in the blood supply. This is 30 minutes after stimulation, so about 40 minutes after a session. It's still the exact same effect. So it lasts up to about 18 hours in patients. So that's one of the cool technologies that is being brought in to help patients on the well care side. So if you look at the 45 known disease states that we know about, 45,000 known diseases, 93% of those originate from inflammation. So if you can reduce inflammation, you're on a good path to helping that patient. That's not all. You've got to have proper nutrition and everything else, right? But at least reducing inflammation would slow down any disease developing in the system. This is a thing that this slide here is something that I partnered with a couple of our folks right here in the round table with Damar and Richard. And then also, I didn't see Phil here today, but Phil is also a part of this. And this is another program that we just launched to help the pharmacies not only increase profits, but also reduce what they are paying in taxes and then get ready for future retirement. Is there anything, Richard, you wanted to speak to that real quick? Or?
No, it's working. It's working nicely. These are the first. We've had the first two meetings. So that's worked well, and we're gonna figure out how we now expand it. We've done it in just a few states, and we're looking at how do we expand this on a national basis.
Yeah, but it would welcome anyone from this group that's just interested. Feel free to dial in. Richard can provide you with the Zoom link that where you could join us on the 21st if you have any interest in in hearing more about what we're doing. It's the prescription for pharmacies' financial success. So kind of keeping in that mode of pharmacies, do prescriptions. So this is their prescription or their RX for their financial success in the future. So I appreciate y'all letting me present, give you an update on where we're at with with the project that I'm on with that help group, BRIM, and we were originally calling it the Fountain of Youth because of some of the anti-aging programs that we were bringing in, but we're starting to get some feedback that might sound a little too new age and
Unrealistic.
yeah, unrealistic and not mainstream healthcare. And so that's when we did the change to BRIM and living life to its fullest. So yeah, but yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me chat about that. I'd love to go around unless there's any questions, should open it up to questions. Yep, Moshe.
Two things. First of all, when I think of the Fountain of Youth, I think of Ponce de Leon, but that's and the water in Florida. So I apologize. I'm showing my age. I'll wait for you to finish swallowing your drink before I ask the question.
No, go ahead. All
right. No, so I have a couple of questions. By the way, I couldn't think of why BRIM stuck in my head. It's because BRIM was a was the name of a coffee company. And it was fill the rim with BRIM. So that's why I couldn't think of it last week. But anyway, getting back on a more serious note. One, what type of outreach are you going to be doing with retired professionals who are still credentialed? So retired nurses, retired nurse practitioners, whatever, because they probably have a more flexible schedule. They don't need the benefits, and they're more apt to be participants as opposed to the Uber model. And by the way, the Uber model worked for a different reason. And that is because Uber came out of California. And as of 30 years ago, in California, you had people who rode with strangers so they could get into the lane where you had 2 or 3 other passengers. You didn't have to know them, but now you got into that lane and you could drive faster than the regular lanes. So that's part of the reason why Uber had an advantage by starting out in California. So it wasn't as strange the concept of driving with strangers let's say in New Jersey as it was. I mean, it would be in New Jersey, but it wouldn't be in California. And then they could, once they got the model going, they could spread it elsewhere. So I wanted to explain that. But going back to the retired credentialed still professionals, aren't they an ideal model for you to have an advanced that you could have relationships with and even have gatherings that's number one. And number two, I want to ask about the financing, right? Don't understand, and I have a business background, unless you ask my wife. But in a business background, the pharmacies benefit by putting money into the fund.
Yep.
Their benefit is getting a return on their money and hopefully reinvesting it, much like a company would do, much like a person who's an investor would do what they call DRIP, which stands for Dividend Reinvestment Program. So that's really how they grow their fund based on the interest, the return on the money. But they would have to add more money outside of that to really see the major benefit for themselves, because your program, as good as it is going to be a short-term pop for them, whereas they need to do stuff like that for a long-term.
Yeah. Yeah, just paying back the loan, just paying back the $35K just gets them membership in the fund. Okay. Then continuing to ear tag a certain, $1,000 a month to go back into the fund. That's when they're building the equity in the fund, is by continuing to contribute to that fund at an average interest earnings of about 8%.
I don't want to go into the weeds too much, so I apologize to everybody else if I'm putting you to sleep. But what I don't understand is so in essence, if a pharmacy wants to be part of this, ABC Pharmacy, they need to come up with the $35,000 or $40,000 to do this, because you don't have, unless you have other pharmacies that have put in denominations of $5,000. Let's say getting $5,000, get 7 pharmacies to put up $5,000, so that a different pharmacy can include this program. Is that how your model works? I mean, I'm sorry if I'm getting too deep.
We already put up the first 300,000 for the first 10 locations, so that 300,000 is already what the fund was started with.
Right.
And then those first 10 pharmacies can borrow from that fund. And then when it's paid back, then the next 10.
Okay, I see. So the fund is independent of the pharmacies, and then they're paying it back, plus hopefully adding to the fund that you have.
Correct.
What about the cost of the equipment that you're going to include in the brim? Do they have to buy that, or is that going to be leased, or how's that work?
Yeah, most of it is the only licensing or leasing fees would be for software until the brim software is completed. So we will have off the shelf like EMR type and scheduling platforms and different things like that until the brim system is completed.
No, but I'm looking at the system you just showed before, which is to increase blood flow.
That you just
Is it-
just acquire
is-
that. It's
they have
a FDA class 2 medical device that we can bill insurance for, that we buy and put into the
so in essence, who buys that equipment? The pharmacy, or does Brim?
Brim does. It's part of that. It's part of that initial investment.
Okay,
Is
so
that a
Brim buys it,
PEMF?
installs it into the pharmacy. Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate
Well,
someone
is
else's.
that a PEMF, Matt, or
It is, yeah. It falls
Okay.
under that
Okay.
category of PEMF, which is pulsating electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's it's not necessarily needs to be that particular one.
Right.
That particular system is the only one that has already gone through the FDA clearance to get
Right.
NGX. That's important to us. If we were just a cash pay wellness center, we could put any PEMF in because we're just going to charge the customer cash. But because we bill insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, United, because we bill those insurances, it has to be a class 2 NGX device.
So
But you could offer both, couldn't you?
that's right. Thank you. I was going right there.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. In fact, most the billing codes fall under muscle stimulation, which why I don't know. It's doing a lot more than muscle stim, but it does fall under muscle stim. So what do the payers say? Oh, this is a musculoskeletal issue. So then they will approve 14 visits.
Yeah.
And so once that patient has used up those 14 visits, now I can tell you that we're very successful at appealing for Medicare. So Medicare will continue to pay because they see the benefit from the patient side. But for private insurance or commercial insurance, they're going to cover the 14
Kind of like
visits.
chiropractic coverage.
Yep, and then the patient would then be offered basically a punch card, $300 for 10 visit punch card.
Breck, I'm
Tomorrow.
curious, is it the German device, the Beamer?
It is, yes.
Awesome, yeah, that's
There's,
great.
there's a shovel, no.
Um, a couple things. So for the sake of this group, who are you, who's your ideal target for Brim? Yeah, for Brim, as far as that you would like to be introduced to.
Yeah, good question, Tamara. It's any, independently owned pharmacy. So it's the owners of those pharmacies that aren't a part of a chain, that are, struggling to make ends meet. They're worried about if the the DIR fee is going to put them out of business, and they need to bring in non-dispensing revenue. So it's literally the same customer that you're helping, for those that don't know what DMAR does.
But on that new slide that you showed, where you had 4 circles, seem like those have either strategic partners or that potentially you would want to connect with as well. As far as staffing, and it sounds like the talent exchange is just getting up. But and it's going to be more potentially clinician based. And so, is there anyone in that area or that you would think about? And then likewise, you know, we talked a little bit about potentially resources on the financial end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing that I meant to cover before Moshe had to hop off is that the back to his example of, you know, tapping into, oh, Moshe's there. You just were off screen. Moshe said getting another call, but okay. But back to your point, Moshe, about the you know, retired. We are assembling our board right now, and on the board we have Dr. Phillips, who is retired but very active still. He is a transplant surgeon that was on the very first heart transplant here in the United States. He was a part of NIH for many years. He was on the short list to run the FDA, and just stayed with surgery and doing transplants. So he's a rich resource of very active but retired healthcare professionals that we'll tap into. The other board members are amazing as well, and be happy to share, you know, with you some of those providers and what their expertise is. Everything from, you know, women's health to mental health professionals. You know, these are, you know, Stanford and grads and Harvard people. They're top-notch people that we have to keep slow down because they have so many things that they want to bring into Brim, and we're like, we need to prove that we're good at doing these 5 things first. So let us do well care checks, let us do chronic, let us do vaccinations, let us do all the low-hanging things and prove, you know, that out before we add in all these other services that they're wanting to bring to Brim. And we also don't want to replace a local physician, right? We want to collaborate with them and support them. So we want to pick up where they don't, what to do the items they don't have time to do, because we also count on that local physician market to direct patients to the pharmacy to continue to get whatever prescriptions are needed in the pharmacy. That brings us to a whole another level of the wellness side of this, is actually getting into the pharmacogenomics or the patient DNA in order to identify that they are on the correct medication, because so many patients are on medications that are doing much more harm to them than the benefit that was intended for it. I just had a call earlier today with a company that brings in all of the health records, all the medical records into one place for the patient. Well, part of that will be all of the prescriptions that patient is on. So you'd think, oh, well, with the doctor know prescriptions, well, they could find 3 or 4 different specialists could be writing a prescription for that patient, not knowing what the other doctor has already needs to sit down, actually with an older client base, sit down with them and look at those medications that they're still on. You know, my father-in-law was just pills that he's taking, and I started going through some of those with him. And I'm not a pharmacist, but I was like, that's why you got sunburned, because that medication right there makes you sensitive to the sun. And you know, they came from the snow to get down out here and get some sunshine therapy, and one of the medications my father-in-law was on just made him burn like crazy, and he swelled up, and it was a really bad situation. Well, had I, you know, taken a look at his meds ahead of time, I would have made sure to keep him in the shade. Yeah. So
I just want to make sure what I was mentioning before was what you're talking about is terrific. So please don't get me wrong. What I was referring to is retired nurse practitioners and people like that who could be available in different parts of the country where you're working to be called on, as opposed to because they already have the benefits. They're not looking. They're looking for the equivalent of pin money, or they're probably on a larger scale, but pin money to keep them busy once or twice a week for about 3 or 4 hours. Because
Mhm.
my guess is you're not going to have something like this going on 8 or 10 hours a day every day at these places.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
absolutely correct. It's a true gig economy. You know, it's the pick up where you want to work when you don't. The same thing, like we haven't even discussed it, but we need to build out the same thing for, floating pharmacists. So there's people that make a living. They don't want to work full time anymore, but they'll pick up a shift here and there. That's a perfect, that gig economy is great to have a board posting for them that'll say, okay, here's the shifts that need to be covered, and here's how much they're offering to pay you to go cover that shift. Oh, that makes it worth my while. I'll go work a weekend, here or there, or I'll work a day here or there. So yeah, it's a brilliant concept. I can't take credit for it. It's the CIO, Cody, Jason Kodish, we just call him Cody, that came up with that whole idea. So real quick, in the last remaining 15 minutes, I want to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to meet each other on here. And I know Jasmina, you're kind of new to the group. I want you to make sure that you get a chance to introduce yourself to everyone and what it is that you're an expert at, and we'll go around the horn real quick.
Thank you. So my name is Yasmina Baylog, and I have been in health and wellness my whole life, and I'm very familiar with Beamer and with the most current technologies. And what I'm involved in actually with a U.S. company currently based in Utah. And what we do, we use small little devices that you put on your body, and they non-invasively activate your very own stem cells. So that's my passion. And if you want to know more, we can connect afterwards. So I want to give everybody else.
Yeah, hear more, and I'm going to in my link tree. So I'll put my contact information again, but the link tree is the Facebook group, Healthcare Disruptors, that I'd love for you to participate in, because there's about 4,000, close to 4,000 people that are in that may be potential, clients of yours or people that would be interested in that. A lot of the people in that are involved in healthcare that are part of this meeting are also members of that that group. It's Well Wave Now Healthcare Disruptors is the group, and we have a Well Wave call too on Tuesdays that I'd love to
Awesome.
invite you to.
I will do that. Thank you.
Armand goes to often. Demar,
Yeah,
hands up.
I'm turning into your virtual assistant, Breck. Is it possible to get Jasmina on the schedule to do a presentation?
I'd love for that. Yes, thank you.
And
Yeah,
for these services, I get paid by the hour. I just want to let you know. So I'm keeping track.
That's awesome.
By the
Yeah,
way,
no,
Breck, you have on the 21st that you're going to be doing another session. You had the 21st of February. I think you had the 7th of March. And then those are Thursdays. So if
yeah,
you move
so
it to
on
Thursday,
so next week, Thursday,
yeah, I think
with Richard.
I think that,
So that meeting that was on the slide was for the financial services side. So it's to help people lower their taxes, double their
okay.
revenue. But for this meeting next week, next Thursday, this same hour, is Cindy Gordon's going to be presenting. But the week after, available. I find I think that Facebook group I just put in. So Facebook group, Well Wave Now Healthcare Disruptors. That's the link I just put into the chat. What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Oregon.
Oregon. Okay, so you're on our same time. So next
Yeah.
in 2 weeks on
10 o'clock.
at 10 o'clock our time, Pacific time.
Yeah,
Would you
I
be
can
available?
do that. The 25th. Yes.
Okay. I'll plug you.
Perfect.
Appreciate
Thank you
that.
much.
And thanks for the suggestion, Damar. Appreciate it. Cheryl, why don't you go next?
I'm here in Arizona. And where the money into an account that you could borrow from, or even create lifetime income. We helped a family just in time. The client passed just after his plan was put in place. We only have today. Are you prepared? Book a time with me to see what your financials will look like when you want to walk off the planet. So we work with individuals and companies. So however we can help. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. Damar, you want to go next?
And Breck, after Jasmina, if you have an opening, I would love to talk.
Okay.
So my name is Damar Lewis. I'm a pharmacist for 40 plus years. Really have transitioned into coaching. Hope to be of the legend of Jim Harbaugh of the Michigan Wolverines, but ever a national championship in pharmacy. Hopefully it'll come. But anyway, on a serious note, we have over 1,000 to 2,000 pharmacies that are going to close, and that's by a financial, I think it was Forbes that said that. And it's not new news. It's been happening for at least a decade. So I'm here to help those small businesses at risk of closure to find a better way and to become more profitable. And I can do that showing them how to really kind of leverage their financials and less double their profits using that strategy and help them implement that. I will put my stuff in or my contact information in the chat, but look forward to anyone that you know, and it can be just a small business that is going through the same thing. So if you know someone, I'd love to see if I can help them.
Yeah. You mentioned that other small business have to see.
Okay, so I'm the owner of the Lead Exec Method Health Partners online program and app. I work with business owners, professionals, and executives to help them that are struggling in different areas of trying to get rid of excess body fat, belly fat. Their energy levels are not good. The aging process is really starting to take hold on them. And so I help them to understand the different strategies to improve their health span and lifespan for better quality longevity. And so that's encompassing, proper mindset, nutrition, supplementation, exercise, recovery, and then hormone optimization. These are critical elements. And so I have different medical teams that I work with to design these science-based protocols so that we can remeasure and check how you're doing and then get you to optimal health as quickly as possible. And it just kind of depends on what your goals are.
Yep, perfect. And then Moshe, are you available still to give a little overview?
I am. I just still have a further question about the need for additional funding for your group, or
Yep.
need for additional funding for pharmacies if they're interested, whether it be independent. Does it have to be through your group or could be independent?
Oh, no, we encourage them to come with their own financing, because right now the ways to this fund is like 100, and only set up 5 or 6 of it. They can come with their own.
And one other question: how soon do you think the money, the pharmacy earns enough to pay back the amount being borrowed?
Yeah, the ROI is about 3 months after credentialing. We start first with Medicare because that's the fastest path for credentialing, and they also pay the fastest. So they pay in 14, 15 days, where other private insurers or the commercial payers like United Healthcare will stretch your billing out for 90 to 120 days before they pay.
They also pay the least amount for insurance companies.
Well, the CMS typically kind of sets the standard for the lowest, or Medicare usually does. The commercial payers have sometimes better rates depending on what network you're in. It's just they make you jump through that better. So they're the ones that are going to need the SOAP note, medical necessity, and then for 120 days. But yeah, typically Medicaid, Medicare kind of sets the standard for the bottom end of reimbursement and insurance.
Well, thank you for answering my questions, and I'll cede my time for somebody else then. Thank you.
Now we're done. You're the last one to introduce what you do.
Excuse me. Okay. I apologize. I'll be real brief. My name is Moshe Math. I'm a partner in a company called New and Trained Science. Our systems look similar to massage chairs at the airport, but our system offers a sonic massage using sound, light, and vibration, taking the mind by through a voyage. Our most popular sound session is relaxation. All this is done through brainwave entrainment. So brainwave entrainment is when the computer freezes up and it's either too heavy or too expensive to throw against the wall in frustration. But so what you do is you use something like this, and then afterwards you feel better. You also, all the things that are in your mind are clear through the autonomic nervous system and so forth. Where this is good is in several areas. One could be for just people who need to relax, much like people to use other ways of improving their health. It could be used in the office, could be used several times a day. As I said, we have other sound sessions as well. And the other area would be pay per use, which we have deals with, such as a spa, whatever, for people who are, where we don't charge, much like a vending type of vending machine, where they get the system and then they charge people. We work at some kind of a split based on a flat amount and then with incentives to encourage. The other thing I'll use is the term, real quick, my partner uses the term biofeed in. In biofeedback, if you are going over the speed limit, you take your foot off the gas pedal, you see a result instantly because your speedometer shows a decline in your traveling speed. With our system, you become the change agent as a result of what you're experiencing in the process. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Great. Well, I appreciate everybody being here today. Also save it too. So if you forget, you can always just holler at me and I'll send it to you. But I'll get information in the chat. And welcome, Jasmine. It's great to have you here. If you want to be added to that newsletter, I would just need an email address from you. So.
Yeah, I definitely would love to connect with all of you. It seems like we're really all working in this similar ways, but different.
Yeah. Yeah. And please join the Facebook group so we can in front of some patients there as well. And again, thanks everyone for being here today. And we've got scheduled now through April 4th. So so thank you, Jasmine and Damar. April 11th, April 18th are open. So if you haven't presented for a while, please let me know. We'll get you on the list.
Are we meeting on April?
All right. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Are we meeting
Thank
on
you.
March 28th? Are we meeting on March 28th or not?
Yeah.
The only reason this is right before Easter. I didn't know if you were going to meet right before Easter.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
That's who I have. That's where I have Jasmine set up for the
March 25th, right?
Yeah.
April 25th. Yeah. And it's the same link, by the way, like today. It's always the same link.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always the same link.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
Bye now.
Bye.